Good to go.
Okay, and who do we have online?
I see
There's
Jen and John.
Oh, okay. Hey, Jen and John,
Hi.
we're going to call the meeting to order.
All right.
Okay, so the first action item, Max did get the correct minutes issued today.
Yep.
I did read them.
I read all of them.
Did you folks get a chance to read them?
I did.
John?
Yeah, I did as well.
Okay. Any discussion or about the minutes? Okay, could someone move to accept?
I was not there.
Oh, okay.
I move we accept the minutes as written.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay,
John?
John will second. Great. All in favor?
Aye.
John, that's an aye.
That's an aye.
All right. And neither of you two are on video, right?
Correct.
Okay, John, same with you?
That's correct.
Okay, because I see black blocks. I just wanted to make sure. All right. So the only thing that I have to report is that the trustees at the Waldoboro Public Library have been very busy getting ready for our one major fundraiser of the year, which is something we call Great Art for Great Reads. And it's an online art auction of original fine art that will begin on Bidding Owl starting September the 25th and run for 2 weeks. All of the art that will be available is actually on display right now at the Waldoboro Public Library. So we invite you or anybody listening in to please come by and have a look at the art and bid, because the library could really use the money. There's some really, really striking work, amazing work. So we're pretty excited about it. And that's really all I have.
Is it Maine artists or anybody that's great?
It is in fact, well, it isn't all Maine artists. In fact, we were just talking about a Japanese artist that someone has donated, but it's primarily Maine artists and primarily artists that in the past have participated in Paint the Town. But there are some others, and there's some new artists, and I think in total we probably have something like 60 pieces. I counted 50 pieces of paint pieces. Yeah. So we have a tremendous amount of art that we're ready to auction off and make money for the library. And that's probably the only thing I have to update. We are going to get into our historic district and moving forward with the EDA. We'll get to that in a minute, but first, are there any town updates, Max?
In terms of the planning board approved the logistics plan for the solar farm that's going to be on Controversy Lane. And I actually just went up to Controversy Lane, I think a week or so ago, to see the condition of the road, and it looks very nice. That was part of the condition, that they have to make some repairs, address the culverts, drainage, and it looks really nice. I'm just finishing up some reports on that, and I have sort of a video from my dash cam that I'm going to use as like a permanent thing of this is what it was when it was completed. So all that's left is for that solar farm to just have the decommissioning plan approved by the select board, which is supposed to be next week. And then that'll be it. They'll get a building permit and they'll start construction.
What's the scale of it compared to the one that's already up in that neighborhood? Bigger or smaller?
Bigger. The last one was maybe 2.9 megawatts per hour. This is the full 5.
Wow.
So bigger.
It's a different organization.
Different company, yep. And the last one was focused on commercial activity. In fact, I think I sent an article to everyone showing that.
Hello.
Yep, Bigelow Labs, I think 85% of its power comes from the solar farm. That's on Travis Reach property. This one is going to be residential focused. So anyone who has a residential bill can speak with Sincarfa to get their energy from there if they get.
Is there a process by which you make that connection and do that deal that we could help people with?
If people are interested, I can get them in contact with Sincarfa's marketing team. The town could have, well, I think the possibility is still open. The town could partner with the marketing team, but I think that was something the select board did not want to do. And I don't know where that's at with the business association. I think from what I had in the minutes, there's just been a bit of a, not even a miscommunication. It's more of just, Jen, you reached out to them and they just haven't talked since.
No response to the email that they sent an email. I responded with more questions, no response after that.
Do they have other projects in the area that we would know anything about?
I think they're actually starting to do a new one now in Nobleboro and Damerscott, but I think they've done one in West Cassett. I'd have to confirm that.
Okay. No, I think it maybe, I'm not sure how it fits into picking winners and conflicts of interest, but it'd be nice if someone could go to the main, to our website somehow and find out how to tie into this, if that's not inappropriate. I don't know. It's private enterprise. Yeah.
That's something to discuss. Yeah. But yeah, that was the main thing. I don't think there's a project coming for the board now. The only thing I can really say is that I've been talking with John Fancy, who used to run the utility district in town, just about potential to expand sewer in town. Because I know the economic committee, we've always looked at expanding the utilities up to the sewer park. And John's given some interesting ideas of how we can save.
You don't mean sewer park. You said expand it to the sewer park. You mean
I'm sorry, expand the sewer to the
Business
industrial
park,
park. Yeah.
big difference.
Big difference.
Big difference.
John's given some ideas for how we can minimize the costs, and I've looked at some, and he's been giving some ideas for other projects we could do in town. But those I had to get a bit more fleshed out.
So he should be on this committee.
Fleshed out, yeah.
He should be on this committee.
I don't know. Is John Fancy a resident of Waldeboro? John Fancy?
No.
No.
Oh, he's not.
Thomaston, I think.
All right.
Yeah, Thomason.
Yeah, I think, I know that when, years ago, when Sylvania and Fieldcrest closed their doors or took them down, that reduced the amount of material they had to process. So in a sense, the Waldeboro sewer lagoons have capacity we're not using, as I understand it. So
Yeah,
it would be a plus if we could create some more water flowing in there.
they were very interested in having Sylvania redirect the stuff they're putting through their column
Oh,
up to the pond up there too. Yeah,
oh.
maybe now that could happen.
Maybe. The last thing I have is AD Gray. The engineer is still looking at it. I just had a call with them this afternoon, and they're still interested. They just asked a few questions, and so I should be getting that report hopefully by next meeting.
One of the things that surfaced during those discussions we had in this room a while back was the negotiations that are probably confidential, but there's negotiations where conceivably the town would get something in lieu of taxes. What's the process, and is that become public at some point?
So right now, I'm not involved in the talks at this point, but I think what we're waiting on is just what the engineer has to say for Volunteers America. Because if the engineer comes along and says, this project's going to cost you like twice as much as you anticipated, there's a good chance volunteers won't go forward.
Yeah.
So I think we're all waiting to see what that engineering report has to say first.
And of course, that would factor into how they would approach everything else.
Yeah, how they'd have to finance the project.
It is on the table, George.
Good.
The memorandum of understanding does bring that
Addresses.
topic up.
Yeah, that to me, I talked to you about it at the time. That
Yeah.
seems like a real important consideration
Mhm.
to getting support for this. I think we have enough support, but to get more, even more support.
Well, that's a public document, so
Yeah.
we're not telling any secrets out of school here.
Right, the memorandum of understanding that was approved, but nothing's been negotiated or talked about since. But that's all I have.
All right. So George, last month, you weren't here, but we were wishing you were here because we wanted to talk about the new business in the business park, American. Unagi, yeah.
The eel business, yeah, they're going nuts. So they're spending a lot of money that'll sometime help us with your,
Other
Yes.
projects,
but yeah, they're not cutting any corners. It's going to be a very big building. They're working fast and furious so they can get into the right cycle for the next season. But yeah, no, it's coming along fast, and boy, they're doing it right. They've spent more money moving dirt around than I've ever spent up there in 15 years before they even get the cement. But yeah, it's really being done right.
And are the eels going to come out of the Madomic? Are they buying local eels? Do you know?
pretty sure the
Well-
Elvers are local, like may not be Waldeboro, but just. the
Yeah,
area.
they I know that they met with DMR to, I guess it amounts to elevating the quotas enough so that there's plenty for them and their other markets.
Oh,
But
okay.
yeah, it's whether it's this river or not, they're main elvers that they're gonna start with.
Wonderful. All right, good. Thank you.
But it's really coming along.
So at our last meeting, so I think I'm gonna read this and then we can kind of figure out where we're gonna go from here. But this will be good because we'll have a solid 40 minutes to kind of focus on this. I do want to get John to give us an update. Maybe we'll do that first.
I was gonna say, the updates probably are the better things to do first, just so we know how much time we
Yeah,
have left.
hey, John, can you give us a quick update on COVID?
Certainly. It's pretty active right now with the Delta variant in our communities. As you know, transmission rate is high in every county of the state at this particular point, and Lincoln County is no exception. We've been seeing roughly, in the last 3 weeks, roughly 20 to 22 positive cases each week. Some are people who are immunocompromised. Others are just very healthy prior to getting the Delta variant. One of the things that we're seeing is that this variant is incredibly active. And as an organization, we're encouraging our employees and others to go back to masking in public, whether you're vaccinated or not, to avoid the big groups, whether you're vaccinated or not, and to take the precautions we were taking a long time ago with COVID, just to help out the community and to try to contain the spread of the virus. We are seeing what's known as breakthrough cases. Those are people who have been fully vaccinated who are getting the disease. About 30% of our cases in the last 3 weeks have been what's known as the breakthrough cases, which is a little alarming for people who've been vaccinated. The best thing about those folks, though, is they're not getting ill. They're not very ill. They're not getting hospitalized. They're not ending up on ventilators. The healthcare system across the state is strapped. There are very few beds available in hospitals across the state, and we're full virtually every night at Lincoln Health, not just with COVID patients, but with other patients with health concerns. So the big thing that we're wrestling with now, and I'd love to make a plug here if I may, even though I don't deal with recruiting at Lincoln Health, we have a lot of job openings right now. We need CNAs desperately. We need people in our dietary staff desperately. As I may have mentioned previously, Lincoln Health has Maine Health has upped its minimum starting wage to $17 an hour, which is certainly very competitive in this area. And, we're really struggling to get folks. We're concerned at the mandate for healthcare workers to be vaccinated. If our healthcare workers are not vaccinated by the end of October, they'll be terminated. It's just, that's where we are. That's the Governor Mills' mandate. And, we know that there are some people who are not going to stay with us, which is regrettable. So we're working to offer them every opportunity to get vaccinated. But it is concerning to see staffing shortages come up. We are, as a result, we're going to be seeing some cutbacks in our outpatient laboratory hours. Going to be seeing, for the employees, are going to be impacted where our cafeteria is going to be limited in hours and limited in what it offers. None of that will affect our patients or our inpatients, but there's a lot going on right now with this disease, and hopefully people will continue to take it seriously, and those who are not vaccinated really should consider it. I'm not sure if any of you watch LCTV, even though we're probably going to be on there with this meeting, but they did a show recently with the husband of one of our employees who died from COVID, and his family. And it was a very, very powerful program. And I would suggest that people who are on the fence about vaccination watch that program, because it's kind of heart-wrenching. And there's thought that, that woman, 42 years old, who passed away, would still be here today if she'd gotten vaccinated.
Have you reached the point where there's actually been somebody with appendicitis or a heart attack who there wasn't a bed for?
Fortunately, not yet. We haven't been in that position yet. One of the challenges we have in our hospital, not to digress too much, is we have a lot of people waiting for nursing home beds in our hospital. So they're in what's called swing beds. So they qualify for rehab services and nursing care, and we have nowhere to put them at this particular point in time because we have shortness of staff in our nursing care facilities. And as you've probably read, some of the nursing care facilities in the area, Country Manor is one of them that has recently announced that it's going to close in 30 days. That's a whole nother can of worms there, if you will. But so far, we've been fortunate. We haven't had to divert patients from our hospital. Many of the hospitals in the Lincoln Health the main health system have gone on diversion and not accepted patients at their hospital for inpatient for 3, 4, 5, 6 hours in a night because they're so busy. It's sort of a perfect storm in the sense that our emergency room volumes have been higher than they usually are as well, not necessarily all related to COVID. So it's hopping, and I tip my hat to our caregivers and the providers, because they are, they've been doing this for a long, long time. And it's, the light at the end of the tunnel isn't as bright as we thought it was with this Delta variant. So it's a challenging time for our team, and they're just doing remarkable work.
John, now that school's back in session and we have kids in high schools, and is there a concern, or are you folks concerned that we could have outbreaks in schools and massive COVID events?
Well, I think we saw it already in other areas of Maine. Portland High School was closed today because of some cases in their school. Mildred L. Day School in Arundel was closed as well. We anticipate that there will be some cases coming out of our schools, obviously because children under 12 are still in a position where they can't get vaccinated. So that's a concern. But yes, I think the short answer to that is yes, there has to be a level of concern when you bring all of those folks together again as a group, that there may be some additional cases.
Bob had his hand up.
I have a couple of questions. Yes. Are you finding that some vaccines are more resistant to breakthrough than others?
Not to my knowledge. I haven't seen that one is like a Pfizer or Moderna or J&J is any different than the other in terms of the breakthrough cases. The percentage of breakthrough cases across Maine is a very small percentage of people. So, our numbers are small, so our breakthrough cases look like a huge percentage, but overall, people who are fully vaccinated are at a large degree missing the variant. And as I said earlier, if they get sick, they don't get as sick as people who haven't been vaccinated.
And there's probably a good chance that they're not even showing up at the hospital, right?
Well, I think when people start getting ill, they have questions now about COVID, but you're right. I mean, there's one of the things about COVID from the beginning is the notion of people having the disease and not having any symptoms, and then spreading the disease further. So it's been like that from the beginning. So I suspect that may be part of it, what's going on as well. But it's really important now more than ever that we remember where we were and we take the steps to not fully go back there again. And one of the reasons why I'm attending virtually is because Maine Health is looking to have people keep their distance whenever they can. And as much as I miss being in the room with you all, I'm just trying to follow some of the protocols that they've established. So yeah, it is a challenging time, and just encourage people who aren't vaccinated to really take a close look at why they're, what their thoughts are. And we certainly respect everybody's decision, but would love to see more folks being vaccinated.
Yeah.
Good. Yes, Bob.
John, is exhaustion beginning to take a toll? Are people leaving not necessarily because they don't want to be vaccinated, but because they're just simply worn out and reached the end of their tether, given the demands that have been placed on them emotionally and professionally?
I would say as a whole, our team is pretty committed to caring for the patients that they care for, because in many cases, they're their friends, they're their neighbors, they're their family, right? I mean, we are a small community hospital. And I think the fact that they're aligned with that type of mission to serve the people that they know is keeping them going. There is a video on our social media site. It's about 1.5 minutes long. That Maine Health did recently. It posted on either Friday or Monday that interviews some of the healthcare workers at Maine Health along with the patient who has COVID. And it's really powerful. Those folks have had how do I say this? They've really been in the trenches. They've had multiple patients day after day after day. And I think, they're exhausted, but again, they're still committed to caring for folks. But, one of the nurses says in the video that every patient in the hospital that day that had COVID was unvaccinated. So it's just, again, trying to get people to consider their options and to consider the importance of the vaccine.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
All right. Do we have any other updates that we need? Am I missing anything?
Could I add a sort of a adjacent question about unemployment and
Yeah, absolutely. Now's the time.
how, when we hear the unemployment rate is like 5,
5.2, actually.
okay, low.
Yeah.
And yet there's all these help wanted signs everywhere. How do you reconcile that? Does that mean people have left, or does that mean that unemployment rate doesn't really reflect the number of people who are passing up?
The unemployment rate typically always follows the people who are looking for jobs, but they can't find the job.
Okay, so if you're not looking, you're not.
Then you're not counted, correct.
That's what I was afraid of.
And the concern is that a lot of people aren't looking because of the federal benefits that have been paid out,
which just ended yesterday.
which will stop, that have stopped.
Yeah.
Yep, just ended yesterday. I
We'll
think,
see what happens now.
I think,
Well,
Oh, sorry, go
Well,
ahead.
no, there's also this, we're seeing it. He just mentioned it. There's a new equilibrium as to what you pay to get someone to start working for you.
Yeah.
And we're feeling it. Everybody up at the business park is feeling it.
Well, and I'm trying to think what the article said. I think it was what, 21,500 people, 21,500 people, Mainers now are getting off the unemployment benefits.
Mm.
So that's the number that we're looking for. And I don't,
And they've been on for an extended period. So typically with unemployment, it's a finite period,
Yeah.
right.
but it's been extended a
So
number
many
of
times, yeah.
times. And so you could have had a group of people in unemployment for probably a year, 2 years, I think.
Fundamentally, people deserve to earn a living wage. I mean, I think we all agree with that.
Yep.
But it does sort of create bumps in the road when you can't get somebody.
I've been reading a lot about that, and a lot of people are expressing, all over the United States, are expressing fear that they will not be protected going back to work, that people have not done the ventilation recommendations to keep people safe from an airborne disease. And that's one of the things. The other thing I've been reading is that families are having trouble with getting daycare. I'm sure that parents are burnt in many cases. There's a lot of different reasons why people are reluctant to return to the jobs that they had before. In some cases, restaurant work is actually an interesting one because people are expressing that they don't feel that they're safe there, for example. So it's an interesting thing, and I think we have to be very careful not to generalize why people aren't going for jobs in different places.
I would say at Lincoln Health, our two major things are daycare, childcare, and quite honestly, for many of our positions, if we're recruiting from outside the area, is cost of housing here and availability of housing here. We've lost some really high quality candidates for medical positions because folks just couldn't find a place that they could afford to live.
That's relevant to this group for sure.
It is.
Yeah.
That's always been one of our selling points was, reasonably priced real estate.
Certainly, yeah, in comparison to the rest of the mid-coast, sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, good, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to, so this is under comp plan EDA. So EDA is, Max?
Economic Development Administration.
Economic Development Administration. So, and this is where we'll spend our last half hour, hopefully. So
Hopefully.
Max said that part of the American Rescue Plan Act is providing supplemental funding to EDA projects that address COVID, distressed communities and resiliency.
Mm-hmm.
Max wanted the EDC to begin the process of focusing on a project so the town can apply for a grant before the deadline in March. So we have a March deadline to come up with some, right?
Right. And it's not even, we have to do a lot of work to get to that point. One of it would be having to get the town to approve a bond for whatever our 20% match would be.
Yep.
Which we would use with the TIF money. We just have to get a figure for that.
Yep.
And that's why I talked with John Fancy to get an idea for extending sewer and water into areas that could open up new places in town for commercial activity or maybe affordable housing.
Does that qualify as resiliency, or how does that fit into this?
What's beautiful is that it's so loosely worded that anything can work as long as you can tie it to COVID. So for example, with the industrial park, we could argue that the industrial park was, and I made sure to say industrial park, was impacted by COVID because if I recall, Sarah couldn't actually do the construction
It was
because
delayed, yeah.
because parts couldn't come in. There was all these people who couldn't come to the,
Yeah.
so COVID directly impacted that. So the town lost out on, well, and you lost out on 1 or 2 years now
Yeah.
of this facility.
Yep. Oh, that's a very legitimate.
And in terms of resiliency, these funds are meant more to not go to not the hospitality, well, the tourism industry more than anything. So, for example,
To not go.
to not go to that. So it's more about projects that support the year-round industries. So one example I was given was working waterfronts. There was one project that apparently was going for the regular 50% EDA. And when this came out, they were apparently told, look, we suggest you reapply again, wink, wink. And that project went from 50 to 80% funded. Because it was a working waterfront. It was self-employed individuals from an industry that were significantly hit. And if COVID happened again, these are people who aren't going to be impacted because they're already working on the waterfront.
There's other businesses in the park who, I guess the phrase is, for want of employees, have been throttled back a little bit, and as Jen pointed out, there's lots of people who don't want to go to work because it might be dangerous there. I mean,
Right.
COVID absolutely is why there's a shortage of help sometimes.
Yeah. And
So, yeah, and you thought about that
So-
link.
so we can be very creative when it comes to the narrative. That's my job most of the time.
So the industrial park, if we brought water and sewer to the industrial park, how much vacant land is there now that we would still be able to develop? That people would say, whoa, that's where I want to be now with sewer and water.
Well, it's interesting. The park the park proper that is there now, there's probably another 30 acres that you could make use of. But, and I'm certainly can't speak for anybody else who owns property in that region, but there's a great big field on the other side of North Noblesboro Road that would be, right now it's being hayed.
Yeah.
But there is land around there that could be expanded and become part of a bigger area if there was sewer, and it already has three-phase power, so.
Well, and if there's interest in that little, can't remember what the corner of what that little area, the rural village area is called, just outside
Winslow's Mills.
it's just called Winslow's Mills, yeah. Because of the zoning we currently have, if we got sewer and water down that way, that shrinks their minimum lot size to
Yeah.
5,000, so people could turn them into apartments if they wanted to.
Yeah, it's nice developable land around there, right along 32.
Or even get it more south, more north, then you have acres and acres that could be turned into, that could potentially be affordable housing.
It's actually a nice spot for it.
Well, one of the, just to broaden the discussion a little bit, one of the conversations we've had in this room for years has been a road parallel to Route 1 that would go up to the high school. Is that among these things being considered with a direct line to the treatment plant?
We talked about that. We talked about even possibly having a second industrial park
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah, that was an EDA project that the town can do as well. And I think,
John may have already done research into that road, not road, but that.
but that idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the things I talked to John about, to see his idea of like getting it up and down. And it's not, I think even some others have suggested that idea. It's actually, depending on how many yeses I can get from certain private individuals in town, that actually is a much closer thing we could do.
Yeah.
And this past year, there's been a lot of people who would like to not be on Route 1. Like they'd like to physically be on Route 1, but not have a curb cut onto Route 1 because of how the Department of Transportation's been to them.
Yeah.
But
So a parallel road makes a lot of sense.
people would love a parallel road. And there's potential. And the local road with the sewer and water, that all counts as EDA. Local road itself would be an EDA project.
But the high school, the school system out there has got a lot of toilets.
It's true.
Max, could that be one project? Could we combine bringing sewer and water to the existing industrial park and also expanding
It would have to be the same project area.
So that would be, in your mind, that's two projects?
That's two different projects. There's nothing wrong with it. I think if we know which project's going to yield the higher return, we do that project first with the 80%. And then we immediately follow up with the lesser of the two. I mean, again, I'm exploring. I talked with John Fancy last week, so I don't have an exact number and on any of these numbers. He gave rough estimates. And I'd have to know who I'm dealing with when we're doing these things. Because I think for both of them, the industrial park and along Route 1, I deal with the Department of Transportation regardless. So I have to get figures from them. I have to get figures from the utility district right now, the main water company, because we want to get water there as well. So I got to get those figures first.
Is there a factor that is on the tip of John Fancy's pad of paper that says every gallon of water that we receive helps us this much? I mean, is there, can you quantify the benefit of having more treatment water? I wonder if they've ever done that, because that offsets costs.
Right, the ratepayers.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the other part of the EDA. If we have a project that's 80% funded for the industrial expansion, that's less money we have to bond for that sewer to pay off over time. So ratepayers don't have to pay so much over the time for that.
Yeah.
So, and the advantage to any, so for example, the new business that's going into the industrial park, if we brought town sewer and town water, is that like an automatic that they would?
Well, that's it. I haven't talked to them about it. They have a very elaborate water treatment system inherent in their system, in their design. And they return water that's all been cleaned, cleaner than the river, back to the river. But there is another waste stream that we've been actually looking at to see if we can make fertilizer out of it. I'll call it eel poop. And eel poop could go to a sewage treatment plant just as good as anybody else's. I mean, it would really simplify some. There'd be virtually any business there has some kind of waste stream. We have a waste stream that we now pay Interstate to come and get because it's too rich in nutrients to put into a septic field.
Yeah.
But Interstate would pay us to take it almost because it's really good for what they do.
Yeah.
So there's waste streams from several businesses there that would help those businesses. Again, it's all been developed without the help of the sewer system, but it would only be further support. And that also maybe enables other businesses, aquaculture businesses in particular, usually will have a waste stream. So it's really very interesting to think about going forward.
Of course, and the other project that we talked about last month was, the
Village project.
the village revitalize, the historic village revitalization, I guess.
Right. I think it was just the village plan is
The
what I always
downtown
did.
plan.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah.
I mean, that's also a possibility. But
So we really, and we looked at a number of projects that could apply to that. And we even, I think at one point said we could even stretch the Sylvania plant into part of that plan. Although I'm not sure that you'd be able to have anything for Sylvania done before March.
we would not have anything done for.
Because you've got a committee, you're putting a board together or committee together, and that's going to take some time to figure that out.
Yeah, and it all comes down to what's envisioned for that site. If we have people who don't want to do more commercial stuff, they want to focus more passive recreation, we're not going to get an EDA for that. Sylvania could be its own project. I don't think we should really have to talk about Sylvania and EDAs at this point.
I think you're right.
But I don't,
So when we have soon to have two different solar fields, I'll say, plus the landfill of the transfer station, which incidentally has some bushes growing up through.
yeah, I guess.
What limits the number of, when those people are looking for places to approach to put in a farm, what are they looking for? I mean.
What is a solar farm company looking
Yeah,
for?
are they just looking for land they can afford that faces south or?
Land and three-phase power, yeah. They like to get 20 acres minimum.
So, well, we've talked about that in Sylvania for years, off and on, different approaches, but, and that could be another private enterprise sort of project.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, that's something that just would need some more discussion, because I think people have different ideas when they say solar on.
Oh, yeah, I know, I don't mean to speak.
No,
for everybody, but that's certainly on the table.
No, but that's what I'm just talking about when we're talking about what to do with Sylvania. I keep holding this belief that everyone has a different idea of what should be done. I bet if I asked every single one of you tonight, privately, what should be done with Sylvania, everyone's going to give me a different answer.
And you gotta, and think that it's waterfront property. I mean, this is not,
Yeah.
well, you know, this isn't low end stuff. This is real valuable property.
Well, I don't know if anyone's noticed, but the Public Works Department has been sort of clearing out that area, getting rid of some of the overgrown bush and everything that's been happening there. They've actually found a nice little area just along the property lines for a trail system. So there are, which is already what I think, Bob, if you remember, that was part of the original plan. Get a trail on the shoreland, and they're already looking at that.
I doubt that commercial development of that shoreline is an option. But certainly recreational development would be an option, I think, subject to DEP approval.
Right. But yeah, we're getting a bit too off on the Sylvania.
All right, so I think it almost feels like we're where we were with the TIF discussion. So many months or maybe almost years ago. And these are the same projects that we had envisioned that TIF money could be used for when we came up with the TIF concept, or you guys came up with the TIF concept. But
everyone played a big part. Everyone in the room did help with getting it together. We got it approved because it was everyone getting the idea of what would be beneficial places to include. We all played a big part.
But that handful of potential projects are kind of the same projects we're talking about. I mean, the road up to the high school was, I remember we talking about that as a potential project.
No, it all overlaps and comes back around.
Well, and that's why Bill and I wanted to do the TIF first, because we have the TIF. There is a project that's going to help fund. I think there's even some money in the TIF now, just not that much. But there has been some improvements already done that have some money in the bank. We can see how much that's going to be over a 20-year timeline.
Right.
But so when does the money arrive there? Like the Eel project, they're spending money now, but it's not being appraised yet.
Every tax season.
Okay.
So April
taxable.
Yeah. So in April, if the ribbon's cut, we're going to see how much we're going to get each year. But
they're going to use an eel.
They're going to pay their taxes in eels. That's what they're going to do. But yeah, we wanted to have the TIF done so that a moment just like this could come up where we can get 80% of funding. 80%. If we have a project, we can just say, that's the one we want to do. That's the one we need to do. And then the EDC just needs to
focus on that.
Focus on it, market it, and just say, look, this is a very unique opportunity and we need to get the town to support it. Let's talk to these people.
So what I think what I'd like to do is go around the table and the virtual table and kind of get everybody's input a little bit about some of these projects that we've talked about and what makes sense to you. Even if we could narrow it down to a handful that we could, maybe next month get into some detail and start, zeroing in on maybe one or two that make sense, and then, work through those and come up with that one project that really makes sense for us to get ready for March, essentially.
Right.
So Bob, I'm going to start with you. Maybe give us your input on, these different projects that are out there. Which ones make the most sense to you? Where do you think we should be focused?
Well, to me, it goes back to the old concept of build it and they will come. I mean, that's what we're relying on here. Unless we have a specific company that has a specific need that we can fulfill. And that to me ought to be the priority, is taking an inventory with our TIF resources eventually of what we have to offer and trying to attract, I'm talking about the industrial park in particular here, what we can attract. And I think that will drive where we set our priorities. Certainly sewer and waste disposal is going to could be a potentially important issue for a company that's doing eels or
Oysters.
or something like that.
Or a developer wanting to build a subdivision.
Right, but if we're gonna build a computer center at the Sylvania location, that's a whole different set of needs.
Right.
And I don't say I am ready at this point to say, well, this is what we ought to focus on. I think we need to do more groundwork about what's out there or what potentially we can attract, and then talk about what we can do.
Jen, I think Jen had her hand up. I don't know if,
Yep, I was gonna go around. So, Jen, do you want
Sure.
to give us your thoughts?
Yeah, my thoughts are we need more information about costs and benefits. What Max was talking about, getting some information from John Fancy about returns that we could expect from different projects in different locations. I think that's the other side of what Bob was saying. Bob was talking about the demand side. I'm talking about our side, what we feel would bring the most benefit to the town for the dollar. And that there are either one of those, for example, sewer water projects in either direction would benefit businesses as well as potential residential locations. And so I think we need to look at that specifically to see if we can cost anything out at all, just to get an idea of what we think might help us reach some of our goals that we have for the town, for the growth of the town. When you're talking about sewer and water, that's a structural asset you're building, which has real value, both to residential and business or commercial value.
Right.
Depending on the location. It can lead to other things. So the difference between building it out parallel to Route 1 out to the high school, for example, is that perhaps that might have more spin-offs in value or in laying the foundation for other projects or other things that might happen there. Going out to the industrial park is a little more focused, but like you said, George, there's the property that's on the corner of the dump road, that maybe somebody be interested in building, housing there. And for sure, we need workforce housing. So I think we have to go at it from that end as well as from the demand end.
Could I add something to that? Because
Yeah,
I
of course.
think Jan has hit on something important here.
Sure.
I think we ought to be looking at infrastructures based on what's the return to the town?
Mhm.
What's the incremental revenue that our water department and our sewer department can realize? Just for example, diverting Sylvania wastewater to our pond instead of to the river. Or the wastewater that's going to be generated by the new facility up at your place, George, to the sewer district instead of,
Mhm.
I mean, everybody benefits potentially from that, depending on what it costs and how long it takes to recover those costs. But I think there are some real numbers you could generate by looking at existing potential users of the infrastructure.
So who can do that kind of a study for us?
I'm sorry,
Who could do that kind of a study?
the type of, well, we'd have to ask the utility district, but we'd have to know like rough numbers, maybe from American Unagi, what they do for discharge. But I think that was part of their application. So that's probably something I have on
Yeah.
file here.
just a tidbit to flesh that out.
John, I'm going to get to you, so. hang in there.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just to flesh that out just a little bit further, I tend to think that the parallel Route 1 might come before the park.
Mhm.
But I say it because I think you get more, I think there's a visibility to it. I'm trying to think of the way I want to say this. We should pick something that we're confident we can succeed at, because nothing succeeds like success. What is that expression? But if we demonstrate that we can do this stuff, then all of a sudden the next one is going to have much less resistance.
Yeah.
We are historically in this room, at least in my experience, a lot of talk, and you never know what you're going to get for results.
Yeah.
It'd be great to have something that you could stand on.
So right. So I don't want to challenge any of the ideas yet. I just
Well,
want the ideas.
We still have John first.
What's that?
John hasn't spoken yet.
Yeah, I know. So Jen, are you done?
Hi.
Yeah, I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, John, what do you think?
Being relatively new to this community, I don't have a lot of strong opinions one way or the other. I do think that, investments in infrastructure usually pay dividends. But again, it's again, what are you trying to accomplish with what you're building with your infrastructure? I guess that's a non-answer, but I think trying to find something that the town can realize a return on the investment is a good thing. And I think you all, with your experience here in the town, probably have a better idea of that at this particular point than I do.
George?
No, just whichever things we pursue, it starts with learning more about, there's a spreadsheet somewhere that says this many people live parallel to Route 1, this many there's some number crunching that some engineering firm is going to do. But the 10,000 foot remark I make is we should pick something that we know we can pull off.
Right.
We don't want to have another false start on anything.
And so, by the way, there was one other sewer water expansion that we discussed with the TIP, which was Route 1 South, right? Did we talk about expanding sewer up to where potentially the new
Medical
arts
building? Oh, that was going to be incorporated into the village plan.
Say that one more time.
That would have been incorporated in the village plan.
In the village plan.
Right, because that would have, the village plan was anything from between Route 1 and Main Street was the original plan.
As wide a scope as that is, that could still be a single project.
Right, because the whole thing is saying we're making these various improvements to this one defined area, this one geographic, whereas earlier what you talked about was, here's this corner pocket of town we're going to put in sewer, and then this corner pocket in town we're also going to put sewer. EDA looks at that and says, you're literally talking about two different corner pockets, whereas the village plan is talking about everything in Waldeboro's district village, if that makes sense.
And so the idea that you at one time said that Sylvania could be incorporated in that plan, is that a good suggestion for us to kind of back away from that at this point?
I think we should back away from it right now. I think the group can certainly talk about all of these projects. There's nothing wrong doing it. And it might be to what George's point was, that perhaps what you should focus on is the one that is the easy slam dunk that you want to get, that we can get done by March. Well, not even March, like we have to get going now. But the one we do feel there's going to be that benefit, and we can get that application for, that we think will have that cost benefit that Jen's mentioned. I hope I will have some answers by next month for the other projects for that sewer expansion project, not to the industrial park,
But to the high school.
to the high school along Manktown, or not Manktown, Route 1.
Parallel, yeah.
And Ruben actually is on YouTube, and he's actually been commenting a few times.
Okay.
Ruben says, I I think fiber is a side note. Can we loop in someone to run data along with any expansion, water and sewer? Also, could we save money by running the water, sewer, fiber to any specific location? What does the school and library pay to the 3-ring binder versus a small bill done by someone else? To Ruben's point, if the town was to do sort of a it's dig once policy, right? Is that what the CTC's been talking about?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Is it dig once policy? Is that what?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So there's a dig once policy where we dig the sewer and water and we put in a conduit line that'll have the dark fiber and people can just buy into that. That's an option. That's something that I don't know the expense for, and we probably need to find a town that's done that before. And I can to answer Ruben on that, I can at least look into that and see what town has done that.
Do we have fiber? We don't have fiber out to the high school?
There is a 3-ring binder that does go along Route 1, but that's privately owned by someone.
It actually runs down Old Main Street.
Yeah.
Back up to Moody's and back up to Route 1. So this whole section of Route 1 that doesn't have any fiber at all. The top of the hill to the south to basically to where Moody's is, west to where Moody's is to the east.
What does the high school do for internet?
Well, that's the dark fiber. And then companies lease to be off that fiber. So I think charter goes up to the high school.
They would be main schools and library, just the way our library is.
Right.
Jen's hand is up.
Yep. And then I'll get to Jen, but charter gets the southern end of Manktown, and then LCI does like the northern section.
Yes, Jen.
Okay. Yeah, the school, just so everybody knows, the schools are doing fine because they got hooked up early through the state, a program that the state and the feds were running.
Yeah.
What I wanted to say about is there a way, Max, for us to get hearing studies done beforehand? Is there another pot of money that sometimes can be used for engineering studies in potential projects? I'm trying to remember.
There are planning grants. I'd have to see if there's one we could possibly get into the cycle, but this might have to be something that would have to come through a town expense.
Yeah, what I was wondering, why I was wondering that, Max, was that there might be some value to have information for a proposal to EDA, because when you're talking about, I mean, there's a concept, right? We have a concept of, for example, bringing sewer and water parallel to Route 1 out to the high school. But we don't really know all the ins and outs of that project, what it could be, depending on topography, geography, land ownership, so forth. And
So Jen, that would actually be a preliminary engineering report. That's something we would have to actually have done before we submit an EDA application. We get that information that would describe all that.
And would the EDC direct that effort, essentially?
We would hire a private engineering consultant, and then we would review it and say, either we like this, let's move ahead with the project, or this is a bit worrisome, a lot out of the budget, we shouldn't do this, or cut back on certain parts.
So let's think about this. Let's think about a March deadline, right? So let's start putting a timeline together on this.
So to me, what I see is the bond, the 20% match with the TIF. We would have to have that approved in March, because I believe we're going to have a primary in March for the gubernatorial election. So that's actually, am I right? 2022, March usually has the primaries. So we have that day, or June.
It'll be June.
It'll be June. So we might have to do it might have to be a special town meeting then to make
I
that.
think it would be if you're not talking a March deadline.
March deadline.
Yeah. it would be a
So we'd have to do that.
special meeting.
So March or February to be safe. We would have,
Is this the last year of this opportunity?
this is the only year they're doing this because this is coming from the American Rescue Plan stimulus.
We gotta do- I mean, if we can get 80% funding, we got
Yeah.
to take a shot at it.
Yeah, I mean, there is an infrastructure bill going through Congress. Who knows if that'll actually happen? I'm praying that it will, but
Yeah.
anyways. So February or March, I would prefer February. We would have to get a town meeting done.
And you've got to have the engineering study done before then,
You'd want to have the engineering study done before then.
because what you want to talk about the benefits,
Yeah, engineering report takes
2 months?
2 months.
We're working to put another building up for our own needs. And we're working with an engineering firm out of Waterville who we've already had meetings to start figuring out the permitting of a building. And they've done work around in the past. Gonna see if they want some more work.
Yeah,
Just on my own interest.
so 2 months, meaning we would have to hire the engineering firm maybe by early December
Probably at the latest,
at the latest.
because there's going to be back and forth throughout this thing.
Yep.
And for us to actually have something available for the voters.
Yep.
It can't be wishy-washy. It's got to be, this is what we want to do.
So maybe by Thanksgiving, we'd want to make sure we have an engineer.
Yeah, that's what I think. I think that's right.
Up till then,
Are there
That's just
engineering firms that are the go-to firms for the town?
when it comes to EDA, they have a stupid rule. And I'm going to say stupid because I doubt they're going to watch this. And if they do, I hope they listen to it. It is a stupid rule. Where whoever is the engineering firm that does the preliminary engineering report is not allowed to bid on the final designs for the project. So if we were to hire Gartley and Dorsey, who's done some projects in town, to do the preliminary engineering report,
They can't
Gartley and
do the
Dorsey,
project.
right, they can't do the designs for the final project,
Well, that's to make sure there's redundancy and wasted effort.
probably. So we want to hire like a smaller consultant firm.
1 or 2 man kind of, well, not 1 or 2, but
Someone who has an open calendar and can do something before January, who can finish this project before January is what we're looking for.
One thing we probably ought to check out is whether or not some of these preliminary reports have already been done. I'm thinking of the sewer district, for example. I'm sure they've looked into what it would cost to extend sewer beyond where they currently provide services.
Okay.
And they're probably sitting on a shelf somewhere in their office.
yes, Jeff.
So this project one of the projects we're talking about going out to the high school with the run water has been talked about since maybe the early 2000s in the town. And they did know how much it was going to cost in 2005 when I was attending select board meetings and we were talking about it then. So there may be some paperwork somewhere or file somewhere that has some historical data on that. I don't know, but there might be.
And we obviously want to hand that to whoever we hire, whichever engineering firm we hire,
Right.
to give them kind of a running start.
I was going to say, even if the plans have already been done, we would likely have to hire someone
Absolutely.
just to tweak it and say, yeah, these 2003 numbers don't match 2021 numbers.
Right.
The first time I heard the idea was from Lee Smith. That's the vintage of this concept.
Right.
But anyways,
I think it's a really interesting idea, interesting concept.
but that's,
So one thing we didn't say, I don't know if you guys have it in the top of your mind. The land that the middle school and the high school is on is extremely wet land. They have problems. They've already had a septic system fail and they have trouble with their toilets and water backing up and stuff, have for years and years. So there's another possible advantage for that.
Huge. All right, I like that. So you will have, so Max, you'll have some preliminary data for us.
I wouldn't say a preliminary engineering report. I'd say
10,000 mile high kind of.
I'd say based on what Bob and Jen were talking about, I will see if there's any old plans I can dig up so that in October I can say we're gonna hopefully hire this person with this money so we can have an engineering report for this project done by this time.
John Fancy would know about the parallel to Route one also.
Okay. Or he might give me a cheap example like with the industrial park to have like a satellite spot.
And just so I understand this, the concept is that anybody between here and there, if they want to put in an industrial park or they want an expansion or put in a residential area, could tie into that water sewer anywhere between here and there, right? That's the basic concept.
Yep.
I love it.
But it would be great if we knew that there was a business or two or a developer who would buy a piece of property and sign a thing saying, yeah, there's sewer and water, I'm building here. That's something EDA always looks for.
There's a lot of it seems to me there's a lot of vacant land.
And there's people looking for places to live they can afford.
I was gonna say,
And affordable housing.
there were some people who did call me and show interest in some pieces of property in town just a few months ago. So if this is a viable project, I bet they would like to come back to town.
It triples the density of the buildings?
Without sewer and water, you need 2 acres of land or 80,000 square feet. If you're on sewer and water, you only need 5,000.
So what's their ratio? A big difference.
Um,
You effectively triple what you can put there, I bet.
More than triple, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, having a residential area near the school is kind of a no-brainer.
16, it's 16 times the difference.
Yeah. And a residential area near where a lot of people are going to work,
Yeah.
you might not have to drive.
We probably have to change the zoning for the Route 1A district, but that's another town vote.
So I just wanted to suggest one more thing.
Yes, Jen.
In terms of time, Matt, if you feel that you need feedback from the EDC, could our members agree that you could convene a meeting or try to schedule a meeting in between our regularly scheduled meetings so that doesn't hold you up?
You can do that, or you can designate a member of the committee to act as a point person.
And so are we able to give feedback via email to that point person, or how does that work?
Pretty much I would talk to them and keep them in the loop on what we're doing. And if that would be the person to say, that sounds like a good idea, keep going, or let's wait until the next EDC meeting.
And then communicate that decision to the group.
Right.
Well, and you can send group emails too. I mean,
Actually, you're not supposed to send group emails unless it's like
Right.
coordinating a time.
oh, okay.
That's what I'm saying. One point person,
That's a new rule or?
that's always been a rule. I think the only reason it's
Oh,
just,
because it's a public meeting, right. Yeah.
right.
Okay. Remember the school board, yeah.
Well,
I just have
go ahead, John.
I just have a feeling that there's going to be a lot of quick moving parts to this. And since we are under a time crunch, I don't want to leave Max, out there by himself without what he needs for backup,
How about, because it's till October, I don't imagine there's going to be a big shift. How about I just focus on finding any reports, and I'll reach out to members who brought up the reports if I find any. I'll try and finalize more details so I have more concrete evidence of saying this is what the projects will end up being. And if possible, I'll come up with some non-Gartley and Dorsey sized engineers who might be able to do the engineering report for us.
So
But no, I will make no decisions.
the unintended consequence of that stupid rule is somebody might not want to do the initial study because they might want to have the real job.
That's why you want to find someone who's smaller and non-Gartley and Dorsey. So a consultant, if
Yeah.
anything. Someone
You'll
with a-
find, I mean, they're out there. They're small enough that they love those little projects, but they have no interest in
Right.
designing the whole thing.
It might be a mom and pop engineering firm who wants to do something small.
There may be an engineering firm that did the original report,
That might.
and they may be able to update it.
I wonder if there's any ma and pa engineering firms. That's, I'm trying to
You know
think of
what I
how that
mean.
marriage would.
All
go.
right, it's,
All right, I think we got some good marching orders. John or Jen, do you have anything new you'd like to add? Old news, new news?
I'm all set.
Not right now.
Bob,
All set.
all good?
We're good.
all right. So now I want to talk about my 50-page explanation of what, okay, I'm done.